Rich, I was wondering if Keyshawn's increased workload on defense is impacting his special teams, or in the case of Monday night where something happens on teams, might impact him to think and make a play and gets him caught in a tough situation playing defense.
No, I don't think so. I just think he made a bad play, so if his workload was increased, then we would have put 11 in there. We talked about that earlier in the year. I think I got asked the question of when you decide who goes back and who does what, when, and I think we talked about what's going on offense. We have a long drive, so you got a lot of plays in Jay Reed, and then same thing, on defense. But if I recall correctly, I think it was a 3 and out right there, and we had the field position we wanted, and we had the return set up that we wanted, and just made a bad play. Just like the week before he made a hell of a play over there on defense, he made a bad play in the punt return game. So we've all moved on. We've had good work at it today, and see what the next game looks like.
Do you coach him, Rich? If it's a muff, just recover it and stay down. Is that a coaching point?
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous coaching point. I think it's a coaching point that he knows, So I think what he would probably tell you is he made 2 mistakes. He muffed the punt and he didn't stay on top of it, right? And we all know Keyshawn is trying to make a play all the time, and I think there's a time and a place for when you're supposed to do that, when we're entrusting you with the ball. And, there's a trust factor in the return game. The returner has to trust the blockers. The blockers have to trust the returner to make the right decision and put them in position to get their blocks done as well. So it's unfortunate. It happened. It's over, and we're looking forward to Sunday afternoon's game.
Along the lines of we've all moved on, will he be your return specialist on kickoffs on Sunday?
Keyshawn? Yeah. The only reason he didn't go back there towards the end of the game is he had a quad, that he was working through, and he stayed on defense, So I actually had 10 on the field on one of the field goal, the last PAT rush, because I didn't know he got banged up. He didn't tell us till we were getting lined up, and then I didn't want to run a guy out there on the field, so it's another spot for him.
Their punter averages 50 yards a kick, so does that mean there's opportunities for the return game because he kicks it so far, or does he have the hang time to go along with that?
Well, he's a little bit of combination of both. He's having a good year. He plays in really good weather. He played in really good weather in Atlanta last week, so we'll see what the weather at Lambeau brings come Sunday afternoon. So we're prepared. He's played really well in the red zone. He's got multiple kicks, how he hits the ball. So again, we'll see how the game goes on Sunday.
What's the process like of learning not only stadiums but wins in stadiums? Saunders says, he saw the win pregame and might have played just a little bit of a role in the tug.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, that the stadium we just played in has a little reputation for wind issues, and I think we saw that. We saw that on the first punt we had or the second punt backed up. It went over to the left and it got hung up, and Rudy ends up running into the return guy, and so that end zone was a little bit tricky. But I thought he, came back and hit another big kick, after missing one. So we've talked about this every week, right? I'd like to get to the point where we're making every single kick, but in my 40-year lifetime, that hasn't happened yet. So again, I thought he had a good day yesterday, and we're excited about what Sunday's going to bring. So in our stadium.
In your experience, obviously you want to make every kick, and that's not going to happen. At what point does it become alarming? Where do you balance that between you're not going to make every one, but
I've never been there, so they make them or they don't. And we either make the tackles or we miss tackles. We make our blocks on kickoff return, we miss our blocks on kickoff return. They just happen to be a football player that's a kicker, or a football player that's a punter, or a football player that's a snapper. And I just believe with work, fixing your problems, and continue to do things well that you do well. If you're a good player, you're going to play well in critical situations, and that's what we're looking for him. That's what we're looking for everybody on all of our units. So we'll see what Sunday brings.
Rich, what is the process for figuring out how to play the wind? So how Anders explained it to us was early on Monday night, it was pretty windy. He went out there for that first kick, thought the wind was going to be more of a factor than it was, put it where he thought he needed to, and he missed it because he realized afterward it wasn't that windy. So then he kicks the next one where he wants it and it goes through. Are there people monitoring that? Is he having to figure it out himself while he's not on, how do you know, is there somebody that keeps track of that sort of stuff?
Well, no, I think, what we encourage our kickers to do is to get a master's in themselves. And I think we talked about this, the first time maybe I took the podium here, but, and he told you exactly what he went through. The first one, he thought it was a little bit of an issue, and he hit it, and where he thought it was gonna go through, and it stayed straight as an arrow, right? And the next one, he said, oh, okay, the wind has died down, it's not the same, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, put the ball right through the middle, So you have to be a self-corrector. Obviously, we'd like to have been a little bit sooner. We picked that end zone for the fourth quarter for a reason. He felt better about going in that direction, towards the end. I believe that, their kicker missed one going the way in which he hit the winner, right? So we keep track of that as well. What's their kicker doing that we're playing against, whether it's our stadium or their stadium. So I'd like to think that hopefully as the more they kick in these pre-games and when they get back out there early at halftime, if the wind has changed, which it did in the stadium, that they can kind of adjust a little bit sooner rather than later. But again, a credit to him. I thought he came back and hit the next one, right down the middle and self-corrected. So that's really what we're looking for. If kickers are looking for a guy to walk up there and go, well, your plant foot's 2 inches off, and your kick foot, you got to get it off your toe and get it on your. I just don't think they're ever going to get better, right? They got to be self-correctors, get a master's in their own craft.
I think one of the kicks, the laces were pointing inward, and Daniel spun it forward.
Turned it, didn't spin it, turned it.
Turned it. Is that a concern? I mean, should
Not a
that
factor.
ever happen, or does that just happen?
Not a factor, not a concern.
What's that?
Not a factor, not a concern.
Okay, I wasn't asking if there was a factor in the kick. I was asking just whether it was a concern in terms of the snap.
Not a concern.
Rich, what did you think of the 2 penalties early on?
Yeah, the first one on Anthony Johnson was not a penalty. The second one on Rudy was a penalty. Now, it was a bad punt. Rudy felt the guy coming at him. He tried to do what we call a come behind and run their guy into their guy, and their guy did a heck of a job and just missed, and the guy was right there, on Rudy. So that was a penalty.
That's a tough one to avoid, though. Right,
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've never seen that. It's the first time for me. So I don't think he had a chance. He saw the guy coming at him, and I think what we've coached him, and what he tried to do was bully that guy into the return guy, and it would have been fine. But the guy got out of the way in a hurry, and the next thing you know, it was on Rudy. So, but it starts with the punt to some degree. It's just not the punt that we wanted. Really didn't go the direction we wanted it. Did the wind have a little bit of a factor in it? Yeah, but I still think Daniel could have done a little bit better job with his direction on that particular punt.
On special teams, is the rule the same on a blindside block where it is on offense, where if you're facing the end zone,
It is.
you're not supposed to be
It
able
is,
to?
and he was not facing the end zone.